For those of you who don't know me, I'm Rob Eder. I'm the editor-in-chief at Drugstore News. And, Dan likes us to share something personal. So last Friday was my 20th anniversary with Drugstore News. So there you go. Here's something personal. That's no joke. That really... and the one thing that I've learned in all that time is that the editor is the guy who talks in someone else's sleep, okay? So I'm not going to do a lot of talking today. We've got a great panel here, so I'm going to introduce them and bring them up. So, and we'll just bring them up one at a time. We have Cheryl Winston from Kimberly-Clark. Oh, she's getting mic'd. Okay, so we'll start with Morgan Mulville from P&G. John Rizzo from Allegro, Heather Warnke from Cow, Natalie Gilquist from Unilever, Kim Washington from Medline, Christine Urea from Nature's Bounty, and Amy Thie from Bayer. And we're going to talk to them a little bit about what their companies are doing to innovate with purpose and meaning, with the common goal of connecting with the new consumer, which we're here to talk about today. So with no further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Dan and our panel.
If I could just get a show of hands, who in this room thinks our organization is very, very good at co-creation, co-development very early in the process? That's crazy. That's the most important competitive skill in our industry right now. That, and Eric shared it, the ability to be resourceful. To not say no, to say, let me think about a new idea. Co-creation and resourcefulness are kind of, those are those traits of those companies that are just gobbling up market share. They have those two traits, and they have it very consistently. So that's a small company DNA. It doesn't need to be a small company DNA. And actually, just because you're small doesn't mean you're good at that. That's a whole other kind of interesting point. But I mean, it's really interesting. The guy we just heard is one of the best in the world at co-development and co-creation. One of the best in the world. And he creates experiences in the calls that really are pretty magnificent. So he shared a lot. And he shared the blueprint knowing very few people can do the blueprint. He gave you the blueprint. And I think what's interesting about the people we've had speaking today, they have no problem giving you the blueprint. Because if the blueprint is lived by everybody, we have a really vibrant industry. And it's a tough blueprint. So I want to keep challenging you that it's powerful stuff. Couple of thoughts as we move into this again. Again, what are we trying to do here for this next 45, 50 minutes? What's an idea? What's a white space? What's a discovery? What's a missed opportunity? What is an underdeveloped category or theme that Target needs to go after? And you guys have an insight and you want to share it. That's kind of the theme. My question for everybody in the room, including the panel, do you understand your customer on a granular level? On a heart and soul level? The data says 3 or 4 people don't. 3 or 4 companies flat do not, and very few really deeply understand heart and soul. Only 46% can translate their knowledge into new advantages and platforms. So you may have an insight, but you have a hard time communicating it into something that matters, in terms that matter. There's an interesting company up here that I want to point out for a second, Allegro. John is going to be talking about it in a few minutes. Allegro is a division of Conair. They're a design firm. Every product they create is co-created for the end user and for the retail partner. They don't create products for the masses. They create customized solutions. They co-create. And that's a kind of, again, going back to this common theme, it's a powerful theme, it's very difficult, and you're always either getting better or falling back. Because everybody's expecting more personalization. That's what John talked about at the beginning. Give me personal solutions. So when you're good at that, you link the customer strategy to their identity. You create value. And if you're not, you're uncompetitive. So we're going to move into this thing. We have 8 really pretty unique and winning firms. Everybody that's been on the panel today are winning companies. They're outperforming their competitors. They're outperforming the industry HBC percentage growth on an annual basis, and that's why you guys are here, and that's why you guys are the kind of company that are looking for an edge. So I'm going to jump into this first. Kimberly's going to kick it off with, Cheryl's going to kick it off with Kimberly Clark. One of every 4 people on the planet engages your product, one of your products. You know, whether it be Cottonelle, Kleenex, Huggies, Depends, that's impact. And you guys are again a powerful company, a large company, a purpose-driven company, but you got scale and you touch a lot of people. And you're intimately working with this organization as it is. I know you are. You're talking to them all the time. What's an idea that you think is meaningful that they need to really think even more deeply about that you can help?
So in the last session, can everyone hear me? In the last panel, we talked a little bit about digital. And you know, how we're thinking about that is more broadly. It's not necessarily just about digital, it's really about convenience. And I'll share a personal story, you know, just to set that up. So by day, I lead the target team for Kimberly Clark, but my most important job is being a mom. And so I have a 16-year-old daughter and a 8-year-old son. And as I've grown my career, my commitment has been that I want to make sure that my kids can find something and be great at it and be the best at it. And so for my daughter, that has been being an elite classically trained ballerina. So she does ballet like 6 days a week. When she first started on that journey, I had no idea how I would do that. But really convenience is what has enabled me to make that commitment. And it's something that brings me great joy. And just like I've had to seek out different solutions for commitment or for convenience, we're seeing consumers placing more and more focus on that. So if you look over the last year, 50% of shoppers have said that they're shopping at less retailers. And that's really driven by a need to simplify. And really consumers are defining convenience more broadly. So it used to be, we used to say like, time is money, you know, let's just be quick. Consumers are looking at things like reliability. They're looking at things like, you know, mental effort. So if I have to get out my cell phone and do math on a deal, you know, that's kind of too much effort. It's also physical effort. You know, in our office, we have an office that's really dominated by millennials. And a lot of them talk about like, I have the baby in the car on the way home and I just, you know, I need someone to bring my diapers or bring whatever I need. And so, you know, what we're seeing is shoppers are turning to digital to really fill that need for convenience. And if you look at the competitive landscape, you're seeing pretty significant investments in emerging delivery methods. So that's things like Amazon Prime Now, huge investments in click and collect. We think click and collect will be $16 billion in revenue over the next 5 years. Same day delivery is going to about triple over the next 5 years. And I think the important thing about this is that has changed the consumer expectation. So our expectation for how quickly we get, you know, whether it's our essentials or whatever, is significantly shorter, and it continues to get shorter. So as Target, you know, transformation, you know, obviously great right to win with the store. It's something you do well. I think these emerging delivery methods are critical opportunities, and specifically with click and collect, that is really something that drives a lot of loyalty. So we know that guests that have interacted with click and collect have an 80% repeat rate, and after they use it 3 to 4 times, they become loyal users. So the critical thing with that is, you know, how do you make it more convenient? We know that 5 minutes is the magic number that makes people repeat and try that. So it's looking at, you know, currently what can be done to make that faster, maybe have some dedicated resources, and to really focus on driving trial, not just from the standpoint for the sake of growing the digital, but it's really something that enables you to drive loyalty with your guests as you help give them time back to do whatever, whether it's participating in activities, having a stress-free day or, spending time with their families.
Can I ask you just a quick follow-up? What do you think is the most difficult, that poltergeist is back. What do you think is the most difficult block that Target experiences in your major categories in the store?
I would say in the short term, there's just the profitability. How do you make these digital models work and do it in a way that, doesn't sink your contribution margin? And I know Target is transforming their supply chain. That's a huge opportunity, not only to enable them to do click and collect, but maybe even leapfrog to same day delivery as well.
Gotcha. Good. Thank you. Hi, Morgan. Good to meet you. Didn't get a chance to meet you before we jumped in. Procter is iconic. It has category-defining brands. It's number 1 or number 2 in every major category. It's an organization that the industry admires and hates. Not a bad thing.
Loud and clear.
The competitive set. But there's a reason for that. Big brands that do a lot of things right are admirational, So you got brands that people think about and they buy very consistently, almost like a subscription model. They buy the brand almost like they're on a subscription model. What's an idea for Target? What's an idea to have them think more deeply about this, and what's the white space for them to think about?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I loved where we started the morning because we started the morning about brand building and talking about how brands are building a relationship, right? And as a brand builder for the last 11 years at P&G, it just kind of spoke to my love language of how we think about building that trust and that connection with our consumers. I'm going to leave 2 thoughts today. One is, as we bring up the slide that I wanted to share, it's our job as both brand builders and retailers to show up where and when our consumers are most receptive. And that's changing, right? The path to purchase is changing along this journey. So showing up there at those critical moments is really important. The second idea I would leave you with, which is similar to the story you shared as a mother, is it's our job to think about changes in a consumer's lives as retailers and brands as an opportunity to show up. So e-commerce is a big space. We talked about that. We have talked about that at length. One of the things that we like to talk about a lot at P&G is we now know that there are more people with mobile devices than actually own toothbrushes. That just seems staggering to me, right? And as you think about that, we also know that shoppers are changing their habits continually. So they're on devices. John walked us through a wonderful exercise this morning of standing up when we had those that had shopped in brick and mortar versus those that had shopped online. And one of the things that I thought was interesting about that exercise is you saw multiple groups of many individuals stand at both times, right? So we have 3 out of 4 shoppers now that are omni-channel shoppers. They're shopping both. And Target has a wonderful guest experience. But within that journey, thinking about the insights behind how she shops and the ways in which she shops is really critical and something that we try and do, and we're trying to partner with Target. So whether it be that unplanned purchase, which creates an implication, I'll tell you a story. My daughter woke up this morning and she said, I have to be an Egyptian queen in the play on Thursday. And I was like, an Egyptian queen? How am I going to get a costume by Thursday for an Egyptian queen? Well, I did that while I was sitting right here this morning, right? And so that's an impulse purchase, but shoppers tend to look to those fulfillment models because they can get something immediately. On the flip side of that, you have more planned purchases, right? Where shoppers are going online and using a fulfillment model, but they can do it with subscriptions. So we've found that as retailers and brands, we have opportunities to show up within that model in very different ways, and that's exciting to us.
I want to reach over to Heather. Heather was on the panel the last 2 years with Cow Brands. Cow is I've done some work with them over the past, they're part of the forum, I've gotten to know them. And I think what's really interesting about this company, it's a Japanese-owned company. And if you know anything about that culture, they only create and put products on the shelf that are technically better than what's next to you on the shelf. To the point where you think you miss opportunity, you may be moving too slow. But everything on the shelf is technically a better product.
So I put that out there because you guys really have got a unique voice, and you got a unique way you do business. You play hair and skin. Tell us a little bit about the opportunity.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I love working for a Japanese company. It's a very similar philosophy to Seventh Generation, where it's very future thinking of what is the impact that I'm going to make with this product or this service, not only in the short term, but in that very long term. And it also starts with a very big, how am I going to impact this world and people's lives? And so I started this idea with one of the insights that we have as a global Cow Insights Academy, and it's called experiential escapism. And it's really stemmed from the fact that we're seeing high levels of physical stress. So we're seeing symptoms of physical stress on 77% of our US population. And what's really hurts my heart is a fact that I heard about our young generation. So we have this highly connected generation of people under 35 years old. They have hundreds and thousands of friends and followers, yet 83% of those under 35 said they feel lonely. And that's something for us that we can do something about as manufacturers, as retailers. We have these great spaces that we can create these escapes and these experiences that people don't have to feel so lonely. Because as we think about e-commerce increasing, that's great, but we're going to lose that connectivity to humans and that actual physical experiences. So I was actually on vacation last week, and I read the book Free Range Brands. And I was extremely inspired by this book because they said that the retailers who are going to succeed in the future are the ones who can bring actual human interaction together in their retail space. And I've seen globally, obviously we've talked about virtual reality, and we've seen the transformation of the retail space coming. I think about Kroger in Cincinnati, our premium grocery store. And in Cincinnati, it literally is the best place to find your match, to find your partner, because they have cocktail hours. There's literally articles written up of go to Kroger and you'll find your future spouse. But it's those retailers that are creating those human connections that are actually going to be the most successful as they utilize that physical space that they have. But for me, something my husband said to me before I came to this panel, he said, as a marketer, Heather, you have to solve problems that you have heart for, that you personally feel is a struggle. And I'm very much a Target shopper. I'm a loyal guest. I'm there quite often. But one of the things that I struggle with personally, I'm 5'3", and the average woman in the US is 5'4". I cannot reach the top shelf in the hair care and the beauty aisle. I knock over the products on the top shelf, and it's extremely frustrating for me and for many women across the US shopping at Target, and specifically in beauty, because it's supposed to be a highly engaging experience. So I reached out to some colleagues across the world, and I spent a lot of time in Europe and in Asia, obviously. And in the UK, both Boots and Superdrug, their shelf height for beauty is only 4 feet versus the average height of Target hair care aisle is 6 feet. And so they see the highest level of engagement and increased shopping time with that 4-foot section. And in Asia, you don't see anything above 5 feet is the highest that you'd see for shopping experience. So, before we can get Target to get to this experiential escapism, we really have to get the fundamentals right. So my hope is that when we have this $7 billion revisit, and revamping of the stores, that all of the beauty shelves can be lowered so that it can be more accessible and experiential for our consumers. I'd love to see Target get to the point of having a pop-up salon. Like we see, these photos are actually from South Korea. My coworker is actually there twice a month, so she sent me these images. We just launched there this past year as well. But Korea is that epicenter for beauty, and they're just bringing brand stories to shelf. They're bringing these in-store salons. They're doing makeup touchovers and hair touchovers, and I'd love Target to get to that point, but first and foremost, I believe in getting that fundamental right and really making it engaging for the shopper.
That's really great insight. Thank you, Heather. Thank you. I'm going to transition over here for a sec. So Natalie, with Unilever, even though you're multinational, you're large with brands that everybody understands, you guys are purpose-driven. Every brand has a purpose. Every brand has got a very distinct identity. Actually, the event we did last year, we had the Vaseline team talking about some of the work around the world. We all know about the work that Dove has done. It's been transformational. What's an idea that Target needs to embrace that you guys are uncovering?
Well, there's a few things. I am fortunate to work for a company that, in spite of being big brands, big corporation. We have a lot of great brands with great purpose. And so it is a fantastic opportunity for us to connect with consumers on an emotional level.
Yep.
As we think about, though, the opportunity at Target, if we can go forward to the slide, as we talk about, some of the things that John had shared during the conversation this morning, there's a lot changing in the landscape of the consumer shopper journey. Some of the stories that were shared by the panel members absolutely resonate with me as a mother. But there's a study that recently showed that moms actually have only about 37 minutes of free time to themselves a day. Imagine, we all live that life. But as a consumer who loves to shop, I would say I definitely fit the Target guest lens. I love to shop, I demand great value, and I am also digitally connected. I find myself doing a lot more online, and because of that, I find that I am less loyal to retailers, which, as somebody who is very passionate about Target, it's hard to do that. But it's interesting because we all know Target is struggling with trips these days. And what's interesting is we dug into some data to understand who's leaving, where are they going? And what's interesting is that it is actually the loyal guests who are still shopping at Target, but they're shopping a lot less and they're spending a lot more. So loyal guests are actually driving about 10% of the trip decline. So as we talked earlier about those loyal guests driving 10% of guests driving 50% of your volume, well, those guests, when we surveyed them, we found that 80% of them didn't even realize that they were shopping less at Target and spending less. But if you think about the way that consumers used to build their shopper journey, lists were a really important part of it. You would put things on your list, and then as soon as your list was long enough, you would make a trip to the store. You don't have to do that anymore. And so, interestingly, a lot of the categories where we're seeing the greatest decline is actually the essentials category, those categories that are driving trips. And where are they going? They are going to a couple of other, brick and mortar retailers, but they're also going very quickly, and from a year-over-year standpoint, most quickly to our biggest e-commerce competitor. But what's interesting is when you ask why, it always comes back to the fundamentals, and there's nothing changing in terms of what she would articulate as the fundamental from a word perspective. Convenience, value, and experience continue to be at the forefront of what a consumer is expecting, but the definitions are changing fast. You can see from what I like to call the spaghetti bowl, that's the way a consumer shops today. At any given moment, she's transitioning from the shopper mindset to the buying mindset, and making sure that our brands are present and our brands in partnership with Target are present and there at the right moment. One of the things as you look at some of the things that consumers speak to in terms of how Target today is driving value, John, you mentioned some of them this morning. It's been the red card, it's been Cartwheel, it's been some of the stock-up trips. But stock-up doesn't fit every household's needs. And value is very much her expectation. But if you think about that in the world of the digital mindset for Target, today they have 32 million active users on Cartwheel, yet you can't use Cartwheel online. I know that many of the folks sitting up here on the panel spend a lot of money driving digital awareness to Target activity, but is typically driving to Cartwheel, which is going to require her to drive a trip. And if we can't get that trip because she's crossed it off her list because she needed it today or tomorrow and didn't have time for the trip, how are we going to get her to convert? So while I think that there's an opportunity for us to think about, maybe Cartwheel is not necessarily going to continue to be a solution for Target, it continues to grow in its user base, but it today is not a seamless experience for the consumer. So that's, I would say, one of the first opportunities in how Target can quickly address one of the value issues that consumers have, is make sure that the value is consistent and enabled throughout the channels. The second, ironically, of the consumers that we surveyed, experience was something that consumers didn't negatively attribute to Target. They actually still continue to love Target. They don't even realize some of the things that competitors are doing to catch up. They still give Target a lot of credit for a great experience. But convenience is one area where they continue to say this is something that is very important to me, and it's not something that today is super easily activated within the walls of Target. Store locations is definitely an important part of it. So it was music to my ears this morning when John talked about Target looking at more urban formats. 85% of consumers within our essentials category, specifically health and beauty, live within 5 miles of a Target store. 5 miles. And if you are not in the right place, absolutely where we're seeing a lot of the decline coming is from consumers who live 6, 7, 8 miles from a Target store, where it is so much easier to just click send, buy, and it'll be here in a couple of days. So looking at how we make sure that those convenience elements are there from a immediate conversion standpoint. I know Target shares some stats around the traffic that comes to Target.com. A great deal of it is driven by either media or by affiliate partners that drive in. Influencers, we all know, play a big role in that. And so making sure that when we are getting a guest in for those singular items, that we're also making it convenient to build out a basket. And the example that was shared earlier from J&J I thought was fantastic, the work that you guys are doing in helping to build the basket and help to ease the experience for the guest within a really complex world. I mean, nobody wants to sit and search through their entire list to build a basket. That's not a fun experience. Ironically, though, once you've built it, many retailers are really leveraging the fact that once it's built, I can just hit repeat. And it'll come whether I'm on subscription or whether I just have 2 minutes to order and I can immediately pull up my basket and resend. So those are some of the things that, definitely from a consumer mindset, I think are one of the biggest opportunities. You originally asked, though, how we really think about bringing purpose-driven brands into this experience, and I think into the shopper experience. And I do think that there continues to be an opportunity in helping to educate consumers about the work that a lot of brands do. I will say, some of us were talking over lunch about the fact that a buyer once told me how excited he was about some of the work that he was doing with niche brands because of the purpose that they have. And I would tell you, many of the Unilever brands, when you start with really kind of what is the foundation of those brands and what are the purpose, they actually started on that. They just started on that so long ago that it's not top of mind to the consumers anymore. And so really bringing those stories back to the forefront and making sure that consumers understand where heritage brands came from and the work that they continue to do to drive positive impact within the communities.
Really good stuff, Natalie. Thank you. I think Natalie reminds us, you may have a brand story, but nobody may know your story, or you may be confusing your story or not telling your story anymore. New companies open up the door by telling their story.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a real blind spot for most companies. Even if you are telling it, are you telling it effectively? Did you get to the root of the story? So really good stuff. Kim, Medline is a company I know a lot about. I'm in Chicago with you. I know a lot about the HME, DME world, just from a lot of work I've done in that world. A lot of people don't know Medline. Medline is an amazing organization, multi-billion-dollar company that touches a lot of people's lives. When you go through having a caregiver experience where you're bringing somebody home who's going through a caregiver experience, mother or father, loved one, if you're yourself are challenged with what goes on when you go home after a hospital experience, there's a lot that goes on, and you guys are in the middle of that. I think this is still a growth opportunity for Target. I really do, and I wanted to have you take the stage on this one. Talk about why does this make sense for Target? How can they go after this in a better way? How can they keep their brand essence, which is so current and so cutting edge, but also this consumer is buying these products because they're all going through it.
That's right.
So take it from there.
Thank you. So what I wanted to do is spend a little bit of time just talking about the caregiver and specifically how we can help the caregiver. So when we describe caregiver, and thank you for the overview of Medline, we're talking about 45 million people who have provided care to a loved one over the last 12 months. So who are they? Typically women, 6 out of 10 are women. They're employed full-time, but they're still providing about 24 hours a week of care to a loved one. And interestingly, about a third of them have children at home on their own. So they don't think of themselves so much as caregivers as they do, I'm just taking care of a loved one.
Yeah.
So there's some degree of physical stress, there's emotional stress as they're thrust into this world that they haven't necessarily chosen, but they have to do it. And so one of the really challenging things is they're ordinary people working without a playbook. And so they're trying to navigate this world of taking care of a loved one without much information, while they're still managing their own lives, their own children, and their careers. And so it's very challenging for them. And some of the specific challenges they face, the majority of older adults say they want to stay in their homes for the remainder of their lives. So for the caregiver, that means helping their loved one have this independence, but also making sure that they're safe. And that becomes a challenging situation. They are often providing medical or nursing tasks to the loved one with no instruction, with very little information, which again adds to the emotional stress. They can be faced with resentment, denial, or anger from the loved one as they're trying to navigate this world. And so all of these challenges can lead them to just surrender really to the situation, and they may be ill-equipped, don't have enough information, they don't have a support network, and so all of these things are happening to this caregiver as they're trying to maintain their lives and take care of their loved one. But we think there are ways to help them, and we want to be at the forefront of helping move them from a position of acceptance, where they're really not moving forward, to a position of control, where they're making positive changes and making adaptations in their lives to address their caregivers' needs. And so there are really three ways that we want to focus, where we want to focus to do that. The first is through connection. And we know that these caregivers are far more likely to seek information online for healthcare solutions. They're engaging in social networks digitally to get more information about caring with their loved ones. So the connection opportunity is to meet them where they are with information, making it an emotional connection with them as they're on their path to purchase online, or making communications with them in store to help them understand that there's help and resources available to them. The second area is really in the area of innovation, and so smart, user-centered design, which helps caregivers reinforce that independence for their loved ones. So product design in the areas of mobility, daily living aids, bath safety products, excuse me, can all help relieve some of the stress of the caregiver as they're able to better provide independence to their loved one. And then third is education. This can be a really confusing category. Which products do I buy? What's needed when? How do I help with mobility with my loved one? There's an interesting statistic where 90% of caregivers believe they need to make modifications in their home to take care of their loved one, but 30% of them have actually done it. And so they need help moving from lack of knowledge to some knowledge to taking action. And so I wanted to share a little bit about how we think of that at Medline. So Medline, as Dan mentioned, is a $9 billion company. We operate in the acute care environment in hospitals, post-acute and nursing homes, all the way through to retail. And so because we serve this full continuum of care, we have product developers, educators, and in-house clinicians that are really focused on following that healthcare journey from hospitals all the way in home, and thinking about products and really being dedicated to developing adaptive living solutions that will help people as they are looking at care solutions for their loved ones. The product education is really, really critical to help people think through what choices they need to make, what products are available, which products go with which other products, and how do we even start this journey. And so that's really where we take that knowledge from an acute care standpoint and drive it through to retail, where we think there's a huge opportunity and huge white space. And so, how should this be addressed, or how should Target be thinking about this? The consumption of healthcare at retail will only continue to increase. As insurance policies change and people are released earlier from hospitals, they're looking for solutions at retail. They're looking for information, and we can help them that way by sharing information with them as they're making these really, really important decisions. Demonstrating an understanding of some of their challenges and the products that they're looking for will be really, really important. I mentioned they're in the sandwich generation, so these caregivers are likely already guests, already looking for this information, and we want to come to them where they are with product solutions, directing them online, having the relevant product assortment in-store, communicating, and really helping selecting products, assembly, giving information so that we're looked at as Target's looked at as a trusted resource and really helping that guest experience.
That's great. I think there's just a quick question I wanted to ask you. Somebody recently, kind of a smaller upstart competitor, was talking, made a point to me, and I wanted to share it with you. The comment was, when somebody goes home and they're needing care from a loved one, the most important thing still is maintaining their dignity.
Yeah. Right.
And whether, here's my question was, yeah, we want functional products, but design is everywhere. And even if you're somebody who, God forbid, had a year to live, design matters in terms of the experience and your dignity. If you could speak to that, because I'm thinking in terms of the Target world, that is so center.
No, I think it's really important. It's dignity, and I think it goes along with independence as well. And so as we look at aging baby boomers, and some of the end users that the caregiver is targeting aren't necessarily extremely old, but they still have disposable income. They're still interested in design, and they're still looking for features that make them feel like they're just adapting to their lifestyle versus aging. And so that's really an area that we'll continue to be more focused in, and making the product integrated with their life and wanting to be proud to use as opposed to feeling like sort of the end of the journey.
Yeah, just as a third party, John, I still think that category is an opportunity for you guys, because she's in there, and it just feels like you could still do it in an elegant way and really make a difference. That's just my own opinion, having been through that world myself a couple times. Christine, it's interesting. There's not many companies that have the size of your company that focus on one part of the store. You know, you guys are a massive organization. I mean that in a lot of size and insight, and you focus on pretty much one part of that store, and there's a lot of power and wisdom in that. You guys have taken on brands or created brands over the years like Solgar, Ester C, MedRx, OsteoBiflex, and of course the whole Nature's Bounty franchise. You guys have a lot of leadership. I know you challenged me with your thinking around, you wanted to bring a bigger idea that had to do with taking all your assets and connecting with this guest and bringing different pieces together that really seem to matter, because the research says it matters, and it should matter to Target because that's what Target does well. So I'd love you to share that idea that you shared with me. I'll get you your slide.
Before I even get into the white space opportunity, what I first want to do is just acknowledge that performance nutrition for Target today is a double-digit growth opportunity. And Target continues to elevate this category and really push the envelope in terms of the industry and the offerings that they have on shelf for the guest. I loved the quote earlier today from Steve Jobs about showing people what they want, right? And I think that Target does a great job with the assortment they have today in this category of showing and leading the guest to those solutions earlier than a lot of other retailers in this space. And so I want to first acknowledge that that's within the category space, Target is gaining share and doing a tremendous job. Where we see the white space opportunity, though, is to really elevate this category up to the real need she's driving towards, which is health management. And so one of the things, one of the insights that as an organization we really have identified and aligned ourselves to is that health management isn't an action, it's a feeling. It is that feeling of being in control of your health, feeling strong, feeling that you're driving towards a purpose that is leading you to be better today than you were yesterday. And so as a part of that, that leads to a very sweet spot that we as marketers or we as retailers can connect to that really helps to then drive a confidence for her that she's doing all that she can and she's finding the right solutions for her to be better than she was yesterday. So as a part of that, physical fitness solution that we can bring to her to help with that health management, we have to acknowledge all the things that she's doing, and fitness nutrition is one of those pieces. But she's also going to Orange Theory and spin, and doing spin classes, and she's tracking all of her performance on her Apple Watch, and she's watching her steps, and she's watching her, her performance metrics every day. She's seeking information about the right training techniques and things she should be doing, and the right level of nutrition as a part of that. And then she comes to Target to kind of complete that play in terms of all of the gear, all of the apparel, all the nutrition that she needs to make sure that she is prepped and ready to perform every day as a part of the 37 minutes that Natalie pointed out that she has for herself, right? So as a part of that, it's great because Target has all of those solutions under the roof. The challenge that they face today is that those categories today are in very different locations across the store. And so she has, in that very short period of time that she has to shop for her family and shop for everybody else as well as herself and find those solutions, she has to cross the store to make that all come together for her. On top of that, we're assuming that when she walks in the door, she already knows all that she has to do to create that optimal solution for herself. So we're assuming that she knows the right gear she needs for running, she knows all of the right apparel to wear for running, and she knows all the right nutrition that she needs pre and post workout, and how that's different for her if she's a runner versus somebody who's a yoga enthusiast, which is a hard thing. And so what we think is the opportunity, the larger opportunity, is for Target to connect with her and provide solutions for her that are curated cross-category solutions, that she can really, find a destination in store. It could be a pop-up store. It could be something we do in terms of .com as a destination. These are curated cross-category solutions that make it easy, make it fun, inspirational, but it provides her that solution that tells her what she needs. So when she leaves the store, she's energized, excited, and she's ready to go for that 37 minutes. She's ready to go for her workout. There's so many ways that you can take this in terms of digital and things you can do to connect with her. She's so socially connected today. She's looking to provide inspiration. She's gaining inspiration from others. And bringing that cross-category solution to her at the right time when she's looking for it, we think is a big opportunity in store.
I asked you during our pre-game, talking through your slide and your idea, I said, give me the best practice. Is anybody doing anything close to this?
No, that's the joy, right?
I
think that you look at, somebody mentioned Athleta earlier today, and Carbon 38, and even Fabletics, and you watch how people are starting to move and emerge in that space. And Target has really done a wonderful job with Anna Kaiser and C9 and really elevating the apparel side. And certainly, you look at the trends we have now with the nutrition. There isn't anybody, though, today who's bringing all three of those things together. And if they are, they're not doing it in a way that provides the most important quotient, which is value, right? So I think that the guest today wants all of those things, but she wants to find them in a solution that she can buy, that she can afford, right? And that looks great, makes her feel good, and brings all those things together. But there's nobody really who's in the space today who brings it all together in a meaningful way that makes it easy and provides the value equation for her.
It's a big idea, idea. Amy, with Bayer, between Aleve, Claritin, Alka-Seltzer, Bayer aspirin, you guys are dead center in thought leadership and over-the-counter wellness and therapeutic solutions. And you've been there for a long time, and you keep getting bigger and stronger. And again, I recognize you spend a lot of time as a team. Your team spends a lot of time with John with Target. But if you were to take a step back, what's a fresh idea? What's an objective white space or a blind spot or something that you look at and you go, we're still not optimizing this. We can help you. Here's how you go after it.
Yeah, we've last year we started to do some exploratory work within pediatric health and wellness that I think kind of brought to the surface that it is definitely an opportunity, and it's cross-category, cross-manufacture, that Target can really own, that no one is doing well today. And like I said, the work we did initially was very exploratory, and it really begs the opportunity for us to do and explore more and actually bring forth pull through a comprehensive, robust strategy from, everything from, category insights leading it around what the shelf should look like, space, pulling through to, to holistic solutions in store, online, and how marketing can kind of complement that. I mean, you think about things like, convenience. Like, one of the initial things we learned is, yes, for mom, very much around, keeping their kids, fit and healthy is about the convenience of bringing it together. So, which can get hard in store because it's kind of, pieced in multiple different places. But even somewhere online, you go to search for products for your kids' health and wellness needs, and it's all over the place. It's really, really hard and difficult to find. Like I said, you don't see others that are doing this well yet. You talk about bringing together holistic solutions from a cross-category standpoint. And it can start with, here's what the space should look like, here's what the shelf should look like, and then how does that pull through and get amplified with marketing campaigns that Target can really own. You think about even like services like, a flu shot campaign that you guys work and deploy. How about taking that up one level, and it's focused in on, your kids being healthy, right? We know that once sickness starts with your kids, it spreads throughout your household. So, is there an opportunity there to market very specifically around it starting with your kids? Healthy kids, lead to a healthy household. And so we really think that there's an opportunity, and it begs for us to do more work here and take a leadership role in bringing forth what is a holistic solution and pulling that all the way through into like what does a holistic marketing plan look like that Target can really own and leverage. So
We did an event last year with Google, with Ryan Olahan, who is in charge of their OTC business, their health and wellness business. And he shared a comment, it was a throwaway line that was really profound. He said, at 4 o'clock in the morning, that's the time when most women check online when their children have got a problem with pain. And he goes, most companies, when they're selling stuff and marketing stuff, are selling and showing the wrong stuff to you at 4 in the morning. They're giving you all the stuff you don't need. You're in this moment where I haven't slept, I need knowledge, and I need it really experientially. It was kind of one of those points, again, I don't think we fully understand digitally how do we connect in moments that matter and that are truly authentic. And he made that point saying that is a huge opportunity for a brand that understands that. So I was just thinking about, as you said that, it's this holistic solution and really understanding the end user. And it's design thinking again. So anything hit you when I say that in terms of any other thoughts that hit you on that?
I think some of the initial insights that kind of bubbled to the top was around who mom looks to, right? I mean, obviously from an expert standpoint, pediatrician really resonates. Next, I think, is around the social influence, and I think we need to do more work too. I think in helping identify like who are the most important experts that I think someone like a Target can leverage. How can you create more influencers in this space to make it easier for mom to find the content that she's looking for, because there's a lot of information out there.
And this is more, John, more for you as you think about this. Your influencer is another part of the store the consumer trusts, and they should be trusting in health and wellness just as much. Your kind of unique influencers you guys have. So good stuff. We're not going to take any questions just because this went more than an hour. That was great content. It was really thoughtful content. And let's take a 15-minute break. Everybody get something to drink, shake it off. We're going to come back in 15 minutes. Thanks again. Great job, guys.